Good morning. It's great to be with everyone. Welcome to Augment Your Week. We're going to be joined shortly by Jamil Frazier. Jamil wrote the book, The 12 Shifts. We've been fighting a little bit of an internet challenge where he is right now in California, and hopefully we'll be able to work our way through that. It's so good to be with everyone, and it's great to be alive. Got my little blood draw this morning early to make sure everything is fine, and man, it feels so good to have my body starting to respond to medication and my heart's pounding properly and not as out of breath as I was a couple weeks ago. So that bilateral pulmonary embolism, it sounds like life-threatening, is subsiding. I can feel today for the first time that I'm really starting to get my energy back. It's so exciting. It's great to be with everyone. You know, we all go through interesting challenges in our lives, and I'm going to start a discussion around this book. I sent out an email to all of our database last week recommending that you go onto Amazon and pick up this book. This is written by Jamil Frazier. I had the privilege of writing the foreword for the book. I get lots of opportunities, only take a few, because it really needs to be substantive. Jamil, an amazing human being who was raised in Pasadena, California in the projects. And as he states in my favorite shift, which is do your own push-ups. I just love that, do your own push-ups. He talks about the only way to get out of that, the projects, was to be an athlete. And that he decided to become the very best baseball player ever. And he has a section here called 1,095,000 swings. This was his pattern. He's in the eighth grade. Eighth grade, he makes this decision. Go to school and dream about baseball. Come home, head back to my bedroom, and trade my backpack for a bat. Take 500 swings with my left hand, then switch stances. Take 500 swings with my right hand and change positions. Take 500 full swings, envisioning a home run every time. Go prone and pump out 100 push-ups, roll over and crush 300 crunches. Let a big smile light up my sweaty face. That was his routine. Eighth grade. He says, after 2 years of doing this, my swing was dialed in, and he became one of the top baseball players in the area. He said, but interestingly, he says, somehow I knew that if I was going to dominate my region and be a great baseball player, no one was going to do it for me. Nobody else could jump into my body and do the 93,000 push-ups, 219,000 sit-ups, or the 1,095,000 swings of the bat for me during those 2 years. My athletic performance was tied to my efforts and my efforts alone. Then he writes this paragraph. Oddly enough, even though I innately understood how this principle applied to athletics, I failed to understand it anywhere else. I failed to take responsibility for my own growth in other areas, a personal failing that chased me into adulthood. And the heading on the next section speaks for itself. It's not my fault. The absence of personal responsibility becomes a vacuum that is most often filled with blame. He blamed everybody. He blamed his teachers for his bad grades. He blamed his mentors for a lack of support. On and on and on it goes. He talks about how this just put him into a downhill slide. Then he said, actually doing the push-ups. He said, you're going to laugh when I tell you this, but for years I was excited to get married. That's not the funny part. The funny part is I was excited to get married because I thought it would make my life easier. And this is how he's written the book. It's so funny. He says, keep laughing, I'll wait. Just Jamil is all over this book. Jamil, there you are. Oh, good. We got to take you off of mute. so we can hear you. There you go.
Good morning.
Oh, Jamil, I've been talking about this beginning of the chapter, do your own push-ups. And in Pasadena, where you grew up in the projects, athletics was like the ticket to get out, right? To save the family. And I've shared with everybody that's watching this morning all the push-ups, the 93,000 push-ups, the 200, on and on and on and on, but that didn't translate to life.
No.
You stepped in right in the perfect moment of time. It's not my fault. Could you take us to that moment and just share with us?
Well, good morning,
Before you
Dave.
Before you do, I'd
Yes.
have to say something for everybody. Those of you who don't know Jamil, Jamil is an extremely successful business owner. He's in the health and wellness business. He helps people get optimally healthy. He's got hundreds and hundreds of coaches on his team that work all across the United States to help people get healthy. I know because we talked about it. It was as he was trying to figure it out. He just moved into his dream house. I won't tell them. It's a really cool house. So you got in your dream house. Amanda, his wife, has walked this journey with him. Bless her heart. She's been so patient as you've learned your lessons. Tremendous success. But I love the fact that when you started your journey, you're in a place that didn't have any hope. Something inside of you, especially as it related to athletics. Athletics woke that up. Something inside of you said it's going to be different. I'm going to be successful. But you're applying this to athletics and having success, and you played football in college. So you're a college athlete, which is awesome. We have that in common, except for the difference is you played and I set the bench. The only time I got to play was at practice. And I've said it many times, every day a body part weakened and every week a body part failed. I just run out of body parts because I was small and slow, so it didn't help. I was all heart. But you play all heart with big, fast guys, you just get crushed. But anyway, that was a fun piece of your life. But you ran into this piece of it's not my fault.
Yeah.
Would you walk us through going from it's not my fault to maybe it is my fault? And there's one line in here I want us to get to where you said, I'll get there. The fact that it might not be your fault doesn't mean you can't take responsibility for it. Wow, that's such a cool line. I've got it underlined in my copy of the book. So it's not my fault. Take us away, Jamil.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for having me on. Many may not know the role that you've played and in my development. And you came into my life about 6 years ago and have been a personal mentor of mine. And for that, I cannot thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. And we've had many conversations, some of which I've gotten off of the line and balled up in tears at my desk and have been especially touched. And I talk about one of those moments in the book. And so, Dave, you're extremely special to me. So I want to appreciate you. I think to understand with greater perspective, this one shift is to take you back a little bit and to take you back in the story. See, I did grow up in Pasadena, California, and my mom was one of the most beautiful women that you ever met in your life. She has a heart the size of California or Texas. But she grew up rough. Both of her parents passed away literally within weeks of each other when she was about 23 years old. That set her into a spiral to where she became an alcoholic and a prolific drug user. My father was in and out of prison as I was in my formative years, with a long stint from the time I was 5 years old to about 10 years old. And so it was a little bit rough growing up. My mom, probably the best thing that she ever did for my sisters and I is move us about 11 or 12 miles east to a city called Temple City. And that's where I spent most of my time growing up. And in Temple City, I fell in love with athletics. And I always wanted to, my life's ambition, Dave, was to play college football, but not just play college football. I wanted to get a scholarship. I wanted a university to say, you're good enough for us to pay for your academics. And so that's what I was really striving for. And my whole life was about athletics. And I played and I did sit-ups and I did push-ups and I swung the bat. And I talk about, 1,095,000 swings just in my room and doing the push-ups, getting up on my feet, doing 500 swings with my left hand, 500 with my right hand, 500 with both hands, and then going back down on the floor, doing sit-ups, doing push-ups, and just doing this routine over and over and over and over again. I just had this intensive drive to want to be really good in athletics. And so I did all the things. I did get that scholarship, went and played college ball, graduated, got into pharmaceutical sales, got married to an incredible woman, and started doing well, but I wasn't doing well. And so by the time I am 28 years old, I'm starting out my first year of my depression that lasted for about 2 years. And when you're in a depressed state, it's very, very hard to see anything being your fault. You're sort of at the circumstances of the world. I was in a point in my life to where what started that depression was I knew right away upon getting married that I kind of wanted out of the relationship. And we had talked about maybe going a few years before getting pregnant, but pregnancy came quick within about 6 months. And so I not only wanted out of the marriage, but now I felt stuck because there's a child that's on the way. And when I'm 10 years old, talking to myself, saying my father's never been here, there's no way if I ever have a child that I would leave. So now I'm in this weird situation to where I want to leave, but I feel stuck because I can't leave. So what do? I do the only thing that I know how to do, which is blame, which is deflect and say all of these other people and these circumstances have gotten me to this place. I played no major role in it. And so that was not just in my marriage, but that showed up in my work relationship. That was the same thing that was happening with my bosses. I looked back on my education. I didn't do well in high school because of teachers. And this is where I find myself about 8 years ago. And so as I started to look forward to getting out of this hole, I first started with my own physical health. And when you're in a 2-year depression, you tend to eat and drink a lot. And so now I find myself 40 pounds overweight. And so I figured I would start there and let me get my body right. And I did. I found an incredible program to help me lose the weight. And from that opportunity, I had a chance to now start helping other people go through the same physical transformation. And that's when the journey started. That's when I started having these, what I call awakenings, these shifts. And as I'm starting to help other people live healthier lives, I start to see my own destructive story within theirs. And it started to dawn on me that what if everything that's happened to me so far isn't like my wife's fault, isn't my mentor's fault, isn't my teacher's fault, my coach's fault, the economy's fault, God's fault, because I was blaming all those people. What if it was actually my fault? And then I remembered, you remember back in the 7th and 8th grade, 9th grade, where you had so much dedication to become a great athlete, and that was on you. You took responsibility for that every night. What if you actually did that with your own life? And that was a aha moment. That was, it hit me like a ton of bricks. But it was really scary because now I was in full control. which I wasn't used to being in full control for about 20 years. And so now you have to look in the mirror and say, well, it would be so much easier to keep blaming this on somebody else or something else. But now I actually have to take the onus. And so that was an awakening, but and an epiphany, but extremely scary, because now how do you do this? Now how do you do this? And so that's where I find myself at that point of the book, was saying, okay, well, I'm starting to understand that it is my fault. But now that I have that understanding, what do I actually do with it? How do I actually move from there? And that was a journey in itself.
Comment, any chance, Jamil? I think this is
Can I see the comment?
Kate made a comment, and she said, just listen to your book this weekend, and it was excellent. I even had my adolescent son listen to your chapters on accepting personal responsibility for his life. He's a baseball player and football player, and your messages are doing your own push-ups and taking ownership of failures really spoke to him. Thank you, Jamil. Isn't that awesome?
That's amazing. You know what's been incredible for me? Oh, go for it, Dave.
I just love that moment when you said, I'm starting to lead other people, and all of a sudden they're a mirror to me. I'm seeing how I'm behaving. Man, that's frustrating when they think, oh my goodness, I'm thinking the same way. Take us a little deeper into that.
Well, I think that I think it's so much easier to see other people's deficiencies. You know, it's really easy to see other people's destructive patterns, to see their own silliness, to see the suffering that they're causing themselves. But it's really hard to see that with yourself. And so what started happening with me is, as I'm working with folks, I would say, so how'd you get here? Dave, and I've asked this question thousands of times over the last 8 years. So how'd you get here? Okay, so you're not where you want to be physically. How'd you get here? You're not where you want to be spiritually. How'd you get here? Mentally and emotionally, financially, relationally. How'd you get here? And rarely ever have I heard, I messed up. It's my fault. And so in the early years, I started hearing this and I said, well, how is it possible that out of these 1,000 people I'm talking to, all of us, them and me, are having the same conclusions? That is not our fault. That is my wife's fault or my husband's fault. He's not on the same regimen as me. He doesn't support me. She doesn't support me. They're not giving us enough money. They're not paying me enough. They took away my bonus. They took away my salary. My kids, the economy, the government, my church, my pastor, my mentor, my best friend, my sister. And so I started seeing myself in this because I was doing the same thing. My wife, my son, they didn't put the yogurt all the way back in the refrigerator. I opened up the door. Yogurt fell out, splattered all over the floor. It's their fault. And so it was like these little tiny instances that now I started seeing myself in all of these people that I was working with. And I talk about it in the book. You need people in your life to see your flaws. And I've had 3 or 4 just incredible mentors, Dave being one, to where they love me enough to tell me the truth. And in one instance, at a conference in Texas, one of these people pulled me to the side and said, at some point in time, you're going to have to realize for your life to get better, only one person is in charge of that. and that is you. I would spend some time really figuring out why you keep doing the things that you're doing and really come to a decision that if you want to get out of this hole, then you got to start doing your own push-ups. And so I didn't get it right then and there, but about a week later, I got it. And I said, wow, you know what? Even if the yogurt or the milk does spill out of the refrigerator, I mean, all of us have had that, right? You go to the refrigerator, you open it up and something falls out and now it's all over the floor, it's shattered and or it's just messy. And now you're frustrated because you got to clean it up. And now you're saying which one of the kids did this or who did this. What I needed to start to understand if even if that did happen, that's still my fault.
Well, it really takes us to the one space in this chapter when you said leaders take responsibilities, leaders do their own push-ups. Leaders don't sit around waiting for all the people and circumstances around them to magically change. Leaders don't base their happiness or success on whether other people can assist them in the exact way they want. Leaders don't get what they want by waiting for Lady Luck to find her way to their door. Leaders learn to see differently. Leaders act. And you go right into this section, E plus R equals O. And that's really what you're talking about. There's an event, splats on the floor. What's the response? And that's huge.
Yeah. Well, my response years ago would have caused me great pain and suffering. My response years ago would have put me in a depression, in a depressed state. My response years ago would have literally ruined my whole day. Even take the event of yogurt spilling on the ground. And I use this one because we've all had that experience. And it's something that's small, but something that's big. That small little cup of plate yogurt spilling on the floor could literally, that would ruin my entire day. That would, believe it or not, I would go a whole month without speaking to my wife because of something like that. Something that's so small, rather insignificant, but is so big. And so before I would have said, haven't we talked about this before? Haven't we gone over how to put yogurt into the refrigerator? You know, and that would have led to the next thing, right? Because like attracts like. Yeah. And so that would have led to, well, now this isn't happening. And now this isn't happening for me. And now I'm at the mercy of this, and so on and so on and so on. And so once I started learning that, hey, okay, so that happened. That's true. I mean, that's what it is. That absolutely happened. Now there's a space that's in there. And I talk about this being one of our superpowers, which is choice, the ability to actually think and to choose and to do this in a way that's always going to serve you. Well, how do I know if it serves me? One, does it make me happy? Am I peaceful? Am I calm? This morning was a perfect example. I was ready to go for this interview at like 5 a.m. We get on, and now I have 7 networks in this house, and I cannot find one that actually works. 7 networks. That's called an event. Years ago, I would have thrown my laptop. I would have blamed my wife. I would have blamed the kids. I would have blamed the cable company. But now the response is, okay, how is this supposed to make me better? And what is the good in this event? You see, just that little shift. How is that? And by the way, that's me doing my own push-ups. What is the good in this? And how is this supposed to make me better? How am I supposed to evolve from this happening? Not how am I supposed to diminish? How am I supposed to get frustrated? How am I supposed to be in despair? How am I supposed to be depressed? How am I supposed to ruin my day from this? No, How does my day, my life, my mission, my purpose, my passion, my success, my humility, how does all that get better from this happening? And what I started learning was it doesn't matter what the happening is, whether it's yogurt or it's the internet or it's a loss of job or it's a coronavirus. It does not matter. What does matter is my response to said happening. That I have 100% control over. And that was an awakening for me because I understood it when it came to athletics, but for some reason it had been missed for the rest of my life.
Mhm. Perhaps, Jamil, it happened for that very moment in teaching us. Because I think what you just said became more profound by the fact that we actually had an internet challenge and we just worked through it. It's not going to ruin the morning. It's not going to ruin the interview. I'm going to carry on if you're not here. I know you'll get here eventually. You did. And now we get to talk about the response to the event and as a result, the outcome. Yeah.
Right. And now what will the outcome be? The outcome will be peace, tranquility, harmony. Maybe someone has their shift. I've gotten better. I've learned that we actually have another network. Once I got up to my room, I was in the home gym when we started this interview. I ran across the field, came into the house, into the room. My wife says, we have another connection. I had no idea we had another connection. Now I've grown. You see, so the event, what happens tends to happen to just about all of us. We all have stuff. You know, when I'm working with people, I say we all have junk in the trunk. We all got some stuff. There's some stuff there. One of your teachings is you talk about carrying the sack and being able to take that off of your back and put it into your heart. We all have a sack that's weighing us down, one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And so that's the events of the life. Those things happen. It's called life. But what are you going to do about it is what separates everyone. And that response is what ultimately gives you this outcome. I think about people that sort of started their journeys maybe to transformation the same time that I did. And I oftentimes think about, okay, well, what is sort of, I guess, separated me in the last 8 years? And if I could point to one thing, it has been my responses, my ability to choose responses that are in alignment to what I would like to create in the future. And most of that is happiness and being stress-free.
It's interesting. People say, if I just made $50,000 a month, all my problems would be solved. I hear that all the time. I go, you just have another set of problems, trust me. But there is where part of doing your own push-ups is also letting go of needing to control everything, for fear that it's going to fall apart. And you just serve and love and lift and build and inspire. And then you get to have peace of mind. Isn't that Og said, I hunger for success, happiness, and peace of mind. If I act, I will perish in a life of failure, misery, and sleepless nights. To have success in your life financially and physically and spiritually, and to let go of that need to control everybody so you now have peace. The internet doesn't work. Okay, we'll just work through it. No big deal. It's not going to ruin my day. That is a remarkable breakthrough. I think the internet did serve one more purpose. You got to have your decisions and your outcome about peace of mind. And the listeners today got to go, wow, what's my internet today?
Yeah.
Was it the dog pooped on the carpet? Was it, children are screaming? Is it if you got a flat tire, the battery's dead? What is your internet today? And what response should you use? because the outcome, the peace of mind, the comfort, the joy is all going to be dependent on that response. Wow, what a great lesson for us all this morning. I want to go one more place. We generally limit this to about 20 or 25 minutes. So everybody listen, I want to keep talking to you for the whole morning. So I need to go one more place. It's a sensitive place. It's a sensitive place. There was a time when you were angry that the food stamps the family was getting weren't enough. You deserve more.
Mm.
To a fundamental shift of my outcome is dependent on me doing my push-ups.
Mm.
Would you speak to our nation for a moment right now?
This is a sensitive place. And I've been having these series of interviews with my mother, who is incredible, and she's probably watching now. And when I say she's incredible, I don't say that just because I'm doing an interview or I know that she's watching. If you understand who she is and the heart that she has, when I was growing up, we had one of these homes that was sort of open to the public. So if my mom saw someone that was in need, she brought them in. I don't care if it was my uncles who oftentimes were homeless down on the streets of Orange Grove and Pasadena. My auntie Betty, who contracted HIV and passed away in our house, to my cousins, to my own siblings who were not biologically hers, but she opened up her house to my father's kids. And so this is who my mother is. And so I've had a series of interviews with her. And one of the things that I asked her on one of my interviews as I'm working on my third book, that's precisely around this topic and many others similar to it. I asked her, I said, us being on welfare, do you think that was, I said, you being on welfare, did it help you or did it hurt you? And she says, I think it hurt me. And I said, why? And she says, because it limited my ability to want to progress, do more. And I said, wow. And it takes me back to doing our own push-ups. One of the most fascinating things about human beings is our ability to grow, to stretch, to do a little bit more. And it doesn't take much. It's fascinating how I watch people. I talk about it, make this evolution from caterpillars to these beautiful monarch butterflies. And I talk about that specifically in two shifts from this one called Growth Equals Pain. One of the things that hurt me and us, and I'll just speak about us, is moving to a state of expectation, moving to a state of entitlement, moving to a state of I'm trapped here. The only way I'm going to do better is if you allow me to do better. If you have the right circumstances to give me things so that I'm better. And that part of that was my clay. Shift number one talks a lot about the clay that we develop consciously or subconsciously. And so part of that was Jamil's clay of, if I'm going to do better economically, then I need for you to give me something. What I started shifting was, if I'm going to do better economically, that I need to figure out a way to serve you better. Completely different mindset. Before it was, what can you do for me? Then it shifted, what can I do for you? What value can I bring into your life? What problem can I solve for your life? How can I help you more instead of thinking, how can you help me more? And when you shift from that mindset of how can I serve you, God, the universe, money says in turn, how can I serve you? If I go out and bring more value into Dave's life, Tiffany's life, Ruby's life, Manny's life, Cecilia's life, Tommy's life, Tony's life, if I bring you value, then the natural response is now I get value in return. That is called doing your own push-ups. So what I started learning was I didn't even need to focus on money, Dave. The only thing I need to focus on was giving. How can I serve more? How can I bring more value to more people in the same amount of time, less time, or more time? And if I figure out a way to do that, then the natural consequences, it is a universal law that if you give, you just focus on that. If you focus on giving and serving, then you shall receive. For some reason, we had it completely backwards. And that not only hurt us financially and economically, it did not serve us mentally and emotionally. It was the one thing that if you take any of my body parts and not allow me to use them right now, I will have atrophy. If we take my right arm and we pin it to my body and I cannot use this arm, eventually it will not work. So what was happening with us was the state of atrophy. We did not have to do our own push-ups, which atrophied our bodies, our minds, and our life.
Chase money, it runs. We serve, money flows. It's antithetical. It's just like, it's an enigma. Like, really, is that true? And you are a living, breathing example of what you just said. I'm just going to let it sit right there with everybody watching. I don't want to say too much more because that was precious. Well, Jamil, you're one of my heroes. Everybody, go get the 12 shifts. Get inside this man's heart because it'll inspire you to take on your own life and make the shifts necessary to get where you want to be. Because you can't get there thinking the way you're thinking, doing what you're currently doing. It's going to take some shifts to do that. Jamil, what a privilege. Thank you. We wish you the best.
Thank you for having me.
I know a little bit about that third book. I can't wait. Blessings to you. May you be inspired. That'll be exciting to have. But until that one comes, you've got to get this one. So go jump on Amazon. I think we've had a link on here. You just go to Amazon and get the book. And when you get an audio, you actually recorded it. I mean, Jamil's the voice. So you get to listen. If you've enjoyed Jamil, this one, you get to hear him narrate this book, which is awesome. You got an ebook, you've got the print book, get it. And when you do, make sure you go back into Amazon and share a review because
yes, please.
This is one of those things where you've done your push-ups on the book. And now we get to do some of our push-ups. So we get the book, let's read it, let's share a review, and let's help get this out to the world. Jamil, blessings to you and Amanda and your beautiful family and your beautiful new home. And go back out in that gym and have a good workout.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye.